Picture this. It's a regular Tuesday. Nothing dramatic has happened. You've managed your morning, you've gotten through your emails, you're doing your thing, even sipping some coffee, green tea, if that's more your style. And then someone uses a tone with you, or a plan changes last minute, my favorite, or you get a text that reads as off, and you don't quite know why yet, but it's not flowing. And something in you just tips on over the edge. Not gradually, no warning. One moment you're coasting, the next you are either completely flooded, heart racing, can't think, saying things you'll have to apologize for later, or you've completely checked out, blank, gone, sitting inside your own body like a passenger who's lost the wheel, baby. And the thing that tipped you wasn't even that big objectively, but it did feel enormous. And you don't know why it felt so enormous. This space is your window of tolerance, which has been compressed by decades of a nervous system that never got what it needed when it requested something. And so today, buckle up because it's going to be a long one. We're going to talk about what that point actually means, how and why it happens, and what you can do about it. Okay, so before we go too far, I'm Viki. I coach late diagnosed ADHD women through the messy middle of transformation. If you are brand new here, this is your first episode, I suggest reversing just a touch. Okay, start at the start, trust me. The first in this series is listed firstly in the description, hopefully up here if I know what I'm doing. And you can also find it as titled month 1:2, like month 1, week 2. Okay, right. So that's that stuff. By the end of this episode, you'll understand what your window of tolerance is without the clinical jargon, why ADHD specifically shrinks that over time, what regulation actually means and what it aims for, and why expanding your window is not only possible, ding, 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 but is genuinely one of the most life-changing things you could do. Let me not be hyperbolic, okay? So I'll illustrate, shall I? I'm going to tell you a version of me from just a few years ago, and by a few, I mean like 2. I could, at the time, be completely fine, genuinely having a solid day. My husband, at the time my man's, not husband, would say something in a certain tone. Not even unkind, just like a tone. Maybe showing his own irritation or annoyance at the day, having nothing to do with me specifically. But I would quickly react, fully activated, heart pounding, sweaty pits like these, convinced something was fundamentally wrong with us, of course. I'd be quickly mentally running through some recent instances that may have caused this tone of annoyance with me. What did I do? And that pattern, I can go all the way back to childhood. All of this unbeknownst to him, because of course, I must mask or die. 2 hours later, maybe, when my energy would come back down, I might look at what triggered me and think, that was nothing. Why did that feel like I should pack a bag and move solo to Mexico tonight? The answer was that my window was this big, really just an absolute sliver of an opening, barely any air able to go through. There was almost no room to move before I hit an edge. Okay, understanding that right there is crucial as a human. And as a human adventuring with neurodivergence, it may just be a missing puzzle piece. Let us see. So we'll do just a touch of science here. Well, neuroscience, okay? The window of tolerance is a concept that comes from polyvagal theory and trauma research, developed by Dr. Dan Siegel, and then later expanded by Dr. Peter Levine and Stephen Porges. Okay, so you can type those people in and find some information. It sounds clinical, yes, and the concept itself, though, is beautifully, practically simple, though not easy. If you are anything like me, the window visual doesn't quite cut it, so I invite you to an alternative if you'd like. I go with the accordion. So when the accordion, or your window of tolerance, is fully open, you have range, you have flexibility, you can move with whatever life brings without immediately hitting a wall. You can feel big emotions, yet still function. You can handle stress and think clearly. You can be inside conflict and still access the rational part of your brain. The open accordion is your expanded window of tolerance. The space inside is where you can think, feel, respond, and function all at the same time. This is the zone where actual living happens. This is where you make embodied decisions, where you feel your feelings without them becoming who you are, where you can be present in your own life, where you are not taking everything personally and therefore rejection sensitivity right there next to it. So when that accordion gets compressed, your range also shrinks. The flexibility is gone. Even small things, coarse salt size, push you out of your narrow window fast. And when you get out of it, you can go in one of two directions. Up, which is hyperarousal, and this is the activated, flooded, overwhelmed, panicked end. Anxiety cranked to 15, racing thought, irritability, reactivity, the fight or flight end of the spectrum, snapping at someone you love over something coarse salt sized, spiraling into the rumination loop from a single text message, feeling like your skin's too tight for your body. That was me. And the tone of voice situation I just described, which for a few years there happened very often. And the second direction that you can go, take a wild guess, is down, which is hypoarousal, okay? Dorsal vagal. This is shut down, checked out, frozen. The can't get off the couch, the dissociation, the brain fog so thick you can't complete a sentence, or zoning off mid-sentence. Lying on the floor feeling like a pile of laundry waiting to be folded. That's what I'm talking about. This is your nervous system hitting the emergency brake, the feeling of significant threat. For many of us, especially late diagnosed neurodivergent women, we ping pong between the up and down states. I should go this way. Activation followed by crash. Flooded, then frozen. Rarely, if ever, hanging out in that middle space where actual living happens. Fascinating how so many ancient wisdom-based theologies center around the idea of the middle path, which occurs to me now. So aligning to that middling buffer zone within life, this middle space in the accordion is what we're aiming for. By expanding, we can get there a little easier. Not eliminating the highs and lows, not to become emotionless or negate emotions or rush through them, thereby bypassing them. That's not the goal. But to widen the breadth with which you can feel more without immediately flying off the handle or out the window in this case, and landing on your ass while also skinning your knees, right, down the hill along the way. So, okay. Why do neurodivergent brains specifically tend to have a more compressed window or accordion? There are three reasons that come to mind that layer on top of each other. So firstly, emotional dysregulation. It's a core feature of the neurodivergent adventure, not a side effect. Okay, it's part and parcel. It's still fairly underrepresented in how ADHD gets diagnosed. Sorry, this aspect within ADHD, how it gets diagnosed and discussed. Okay, typically it's the hyperactivity, it's the impulsivity, it's the executive dysfunctioning, but emotional dysregulation, the inability to modulate the intensity and duration of emotional responses is one of the most consistent and impactful features of the neurodivergent experience, anywhere on that spectrum, really. ADHD brains in particular feel things more intensely and can take longer to return to baseline after what they determine as an emotional event. Therefore, emotional events are highly subjective, of course. The window starts out narrower, because the nervous system is working with less natural regulation capacity from its start. This is not a personal failing, it's simply brain neurology. So that is what that is. So how do we then adventure with it is the question. Second up is a lifetime of being told you were too much, right? If you're a late diagnosed ADHD woman, you've probably spent decades being told directly or indirectly that your reactions are too big, you're too sensitive, you're too dramatic, you're too emotional, la 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 la. What'd you do? Most likely learn to manage, to contain, to perform regulation when you weren't, to white knuckle your way through situations that were objectively overwhelming and tell everyone, including yourself, that you were just fine. The epitome of masking right there. I'm good at that. It is a load of shite, however. I did that for years. I am exceptional, if I do say so myself, at performing fine. Sometimes I get lost in it still. I had absolutely no idea that performance was costing my body, and my body started presenting that bill more recently, as I've chatted about before, a lot recently. Chronic suppression of the nervous system's natural responses keeps it in a low level state of activation constantly. A pot that's always just below boiling. It therefore takes very little to tip that bad boy over, right? So keeping that in mind. Thirdly is the cumulative load. We talked last week about how gut health, hormones, inflammation, the stress of it all impact our nervous systems. All of that is load on your window or accordion. A dysregulated gut adds load. Hormonal fluctuations add load. Chronic inflammation add load. Unprocessed emotional experiences, decades of masking, you see where I'm going. Those are heavy. The window doesn't shrink overnight, it compresses gradually under the weight of everything your nervous system has been managing without the tools or language to process and release. Okay, this is where the nervous system regulation conversation has been coming in. This results in a nervous system that is chronically closer to its edges than its center, its middle path, that sought after middle path. At the edges, it's easy as hell to tip into hyper or hypoarousal by things that seem small from the outside but feel enormous from the inside. Because they are enormous, to a compressed accordion or window, nearly everything is enormous. So let's get a few things straight right now. Regulation is not being calm all the time. It is not feeling big emotions. It is not having no reactions. It is not being unbothered. It is not performing being just fine. Been there, done all those, can attest they don't work very well for too long. None of them are regulation, saws. Regulation is the ability to move through your emotional and physiological states without getting stuck at the extremes. Dare I posit that regulation is the middle way. Okay. Am I a theologian? Just kidding. But am I? It's feeling angry, but not staying flooded for 3 days in the anger. It's feeling anxiety and being able to bring yourself back without spiraling into a full shutdown. It's being in conflict and staying in your body instead of exploding to becoming blank or completely just dissociating and checking out. This was my area, Stonewall. I think about that version of me that could be in a disagreement with D, my man, and stay present in my body, curious instead of catastrophizing. What? It's a wild idea. It's possible with practice. The even idea of it used to for real just not be possible for me. I couldn't possibly fathom the day when I could stand fully feeling yet grounded in conflict. Like, that's crazy. My accordion was this big. Any conflict hit an edge immediately. Of course, that goes as far back to childhood as I could think, where I thought anything was conflict. Nowadays, there's room. Not infinite room, but real, actual space, okay? And the aim is not stillness, the aim is range or breadth of movement. A regulated nervous system is one where the accordion can open wide and then come back to its center, and it can expand into big experiences and return to baseline. It moves, it's flexible, it has capacity like a yielding tree, right? An unregulated nervous system is one where the accordion is stuck, jammed open in hyper, or collapsed shut in hypo. Regulation is learning to move the accordion again, and it simply takes practice. There's no amount of words that I can say or that you can say or know that will make it happen. So the relieving thing, I think, is that fact that it is learnable. This is neuroplasticity in action. Your nervous system is not fixed in its form. It is not permanent, and bless up to that. The patterns that have developed over decades of inadequate support can in fact be interrupted, rewired, and replaced with new, more serviceable ones. Not quickly and not without practice, baby, but very possible. So it's up to you to do the work of the work, right? The neuroscience on this is fairly solid. The brain maintains the capacity to form new neural pathways throughout the entirety of your lifetime. What gets practiced gets wired. What gets wired becomes the new pattern. My own cortisol is down. My inflammation in my body is lower than ever. My sleep is deep as hell. My accordion has actual range now. That's not a personality change, although it could seem that way to some, sure. But what it is, in fact, is a nervous system that has been consistently given what it's needed over time. Yours can do the same. So what does expanding your window actually require? I'm going to be honest with you here because wellness content tends to skip this particular part. Shocker. Consistency over intensity. One breathwork session or one really great therapy appointment doesn't expand your window. Or one great ayahuasca experience. It doesn't. What expands is micro, regular, repeated inputs to your nervous system that gradually teach a new baseline. It is like physical therapy after an injury. You don't do one session and walk out healed. You could talk to me about that. I did no PT on this bunion surgery that I had, and that thing don't move. You do the exercises every day, even when they feel boring or small, until the tissue actually rebuilds. Wish I'd have followed that back in the day. Your nervous system works exactly the same way. How convenient. I have spent months, it's essentially been 2 years at this point, doing small practices daily, sometimes forgetting, yes, but I'd say 80-20, I kept up with it before I noticed the accordion had more room. Years, not a weekend retreat. You feel me? So months, years of boring, unglamorous, consistent, small inputs is feeding and fueling you more than you can recognize yet. It's worth every single one of those inputs because inevitably, even my husband noticed. People started to notice go slow to go far idea. One of the counterintuitive things about nervous system work is that pushing harder makes it worse, actually. Forcing yourself through activation without support actually reinforces dysregulation. So the window expands when you work at its edges gently and compassionately and with forgiveness, not when you blast through them. Because honestly, what's the destination? It's about the journey. This is why the practices we'll go through next week are designed to be small and accessible, not dramatic, not intense, consistent and gentle. Simple, not necessarily easy. Body-based work, not just cognitive work. We love to be up here and intellectualize the shit out of everything. You cannot think or know your way to a regulated nervous system. Sorry, not sorry. That's why this is the foundation, in my opinion. I've tried. I love being a high intellectual. I love to understand things. I read everything. I analyzed my patterns. I'm a glutton for personal development. Please give me feedback. I want to know so I could change tomorrow. I understood intellectually exactly what was happening in my nervous system. But I remained dysregulated for a minute, so much so that I ended up with more chronic inflammation. So because the window of tolerance actually lives within your body, it is a physiological state, not a mental state. Which means talking about it, analyzing it, and understanding it intellectually, genuinely helpful in context, is not the same as doing the work. You get to work with the body, breath, movement, sensation, posture. This is where the change actually happens. So you get to do the doing. Yay. So next week's episode, practical. 10, at least, regulation tools for your resilience toolkit. Take what sticks, leave the rest. So what I want you to leave today with in review, because I know this was long, your window of tolerance is not your personality. Okay. The reactivity, the shutdowns, the 0 to flooded in 60 seconds. These are not who you are. They are the current capacity of a nervous system that has been carrying too much for too long without the right tools. That's all. The Tuesday afternoon that tips you over due to a minor tone of voice is not evidence that you are broken. It's evidence that your accordion gets to have some room. Neuroplasticity is real and it applies to you. Your nervous system can change. The research is clear on this. New neural pathways can be built. Old patterns can be interrupted. The accordion can learn to expand at any time, at any age, including after decades of compression. Anything is possible at any moment. Regulation is a practice, not a destination. You are not trying to arrive somewhere. You are building a daily relationship with your own nervous system that gradually, consistently expands what you can hold as life lifes, which it will consistently do. The most important thing, if there is one, dare I say, the goal is not to feel less. The goal is to be able to feel more without losing yourself in it. That's the window expanding. That is what this entire journey is building toward. If you feel like you like this kind of thing, grab your own 70-page resilience toolkit. I call it the RezKit. It's $27 in my description if you're into it. Printing it out is great. Place it on your bedside table or next to your workstation, and you can keep all this top of mind as you're working through it. As you like. Do as you do. But that's all she wrote, folks. Check you next week.